Welcome in, everyone. I'll kind of let everybody get in here and before we get fully started and start getting into the discussion about bridging the executive gap, which I know is a tough topic to to cover. And so I have Jay here, Jason Abbott from I think Director of Corporate IT at Ninja. Okay, awesome. Just want to make sure I got your job title right. But we're going to be talking a little bit about how you can better communicate with executives, how to communicate your needs with executives, what they like to hear, what they don't like to hear, all of that, all of that good stuff. But before we jump into that discussion, it's been a little bit since you've been on, so I was wondering if you would be able to give us a quick overview of kind of who you are, how you got into IT, and how you got into IT management as well.
Sure. So, like Brittany said, I'm Jason Abbott. I'm the Director of Corporate IT here at NinjaOne. I have been in IT for just about 30 years at this point. I started out doing working in data centers, racking and stacking servers, all the way up through now the Director of IT. I got into IT because I was always interested in computers. This was back when you actually had to really make an effort to be involved in computers. Not everybody had computers in their houses. Schools didn't have them, just for everybody. So it just always spoke to me. And I've been in IT management for about almost 18 years now. I moved into a team lead role for some storage and server admins, and then supervisor, manager, all the way through today, where my team is responsible for all IT globally inside of the company. So that's networks, systems, office, physical office requirements, conference rooms, all of that stuff. And it's been a long trek. And interestingly enough, one of the things that I found very interesting, that when I moved into management, the companies I was working for were very, very good at acknowledging that it's really hard to go from an individual contributor into management. And so we had many opportunities that were taken for me to move back from management back into an individual contributor role, because I was not succeeding in the way that I would have preferred to. So, but they resulted in more training, more education, more learning, and more time, and then moving finally into management for good.
Yeah.
And here I am today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I completely feel that. I fell into management way too early. I think I was working my first full-time job out of college for about a year before I started managing, and then suddenly I was managing people, and I went, wait a second, I I don't know what I'm doing, and definitely I went back to individual contributor because I was like, I think I need to learn a little bit more on my own before I start managing people. So I definitely feel that. Well, I really appreciate you being on today. We'll kind of go ahead and kick it off with kind of a big question right off the bat. I know that the last time that we had talked, it was about kind of proving value of IT, building roadmaps, things like that. And you mentioned that IT is frequently seen as a cost center, which is a topic of conversation that seems to come up with a lot of IT leaders in trying to prove value to executives and trying to get the investment that they need, whether that's people or budget or things like that. So, what is your approach to framing IT initiatives in ROI or business outcomes, like an executive might want?
Honestly, the biggest thing you can do is work very closely with your stakeholders, the people who need the resources that IT is providing. Work with them to understand what is the value you're creating, because that's the thing. IT is a cost center. There is no way around it. We just cost money. But what we create is we create business value. If we create a process that shaves days off of order to contract in the sales cycle, that's worth money. That's worth real tangible dollars. And working with your sales department or working with your business operations department to identify places where technology, the proper application of technology, can really change how you work is where you generate business value. And that ultimately is how you prove value. If we can generate $1 million of value and it costs us $1 million to operate IT, then we break even. We're no longer a cost center. The thing is, what we really fail to do a lot in IT is properly get the value from our stakeholders about what these projects we do is worth to them. Because I've never, since I've started doing this, which it's been almost 10 years that I've been working this way, I've never once been able to, or not been able to, justify 3x my budget in business value creation. And that's not, and the thing is, that's my whole budget. That includes the service desk, which there's not really a fundamental, there's a value to the business, but there's not a business value to the service desk. But I can cover all of their budget, all of the budget of the internal services that don't generate that business value, simply by these big projects that generate massive business value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you go about getting those metrics that you might use for an ROI case? You said working with the stakeholders, but
that's the first thing. It starts with understanding what their driver is, right? When I go and I talk to our CRO or one of our sales leaders, and I say to them, what are the problems you're having in IT? Or what are the problems you're having? Not even in IT, just what are the problems you're having? And they say, oh, our internal calling people have an issue where they are, it takes them a long time to make connections with people. And the reason it takes long is because we have 10 different disparate systems with all different data. And it's like, oh, well, that's an opportunity to group together that data, or provide a data, a service bus where all your data is available in one location. What would it be? What do you, business leader, estimate the value of that to be? Do you think is it worth $5 million in ARR? Is it worth $50 in ARR? Right. And when you just do a little bit of horse trading, and the thing is, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to get it right the first time. You aren't going to get it right the 10th time. Everybody overestimates in certain areas and underestimates in certain areas, which is why retrospectives later are key. Like 1 year after, hey, how did we do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What kind of things would you usually cover in a retrospective that might help you down the line?
Oh, sure. That one's actually pretty easy, because your project has to have defined outcomes, right? Mm-hmm. We are going to reduce the amount of time it takes a salesperson to make their first connection with a potential client by 50% through aggregating data.
Okay.
Cool. That's a very easy metric to do. Did we make it? Did we not make it? Okay. We actually we did better. It was 40%. Cool. We got an extra 10% out of that, but we were only going for 50. We got 60. Awesome. So those numbers are very easy to do. And also, point in time, here was our February of 2024 numbers. Here's our February of 2025 numbers. And we see that there is a difference that can't just be accounted for with staffing changes. Mm-hmm. A statistically significant difference. And those things all help us. Okay, well, we've narrowed this time. We've increased this revenue. Great. Did that revenue increase match what we thought it would? No, it was a little bit under. Okay, a little bit under is fine. Was it vastly under? Why did we think that this would help? Mm-hmm. What were our assumptions going into it?
Yeah.
And that just, and again, the retros are not, they're not pointing fingers. They're not blaming. They're literally just to understand where did we not estimate correctly? So that way our next estimation goes that much better.
Yeah. Do you usually have some sort of like standard template that you usually use for retros, or is it kind of just more of a conversation?
It's based on the project initiation document, right? Whenever you start your project and you capture your outcomes, and you have to capture the assumptions that lead you to that business value driver, right? Mm-hmm. We believe that if we shorten this time by 50%, it will result in 40% increase in sales. Mm-hmm. Because it will result in this many more first touches happening, et cetera, right? Okay. So you capture all of those, and then when you're doing your retro, we move, we can just go through every one of those assumptions. Did this work? No, this assumption was totally wrong. Okay, well, that would change our numbers, or this assumption worked well, or something.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes total sense. Whenever you are presenting to the executive team, are there any kind of general do's and don'ts when it comes to these kinds of presentations?
Yes. Do always come in with business value, with what is the problem you're trying to solve, and here are the solutions that you're planning to solve. Never go in with an open-ended question. You always have to provide. Here's a problem. Here's a solution. Preferably, you'll have two solutions or something like that. And you can say these are the two that are the most likely to work. We're going to do this one, but you can't ever go to an executive without having a solution, because you are not going to want them to find a solution for you.
Yeah, I have a feeling you wouldn't like the solution that they might come up with too. Yeah, I think that's really, really helpful. When presenting too, I think that I'm not sure if you said it or if I heard it somewhere, but basically the idea of storytelling. So how important is storytelling when you are making presentations to executives?
That wildly depends on the executive you're talking to.
Okay.
Some executives live in storytelling, right? Specifically, if they came from product centric roles where you have to do your story. You create your stories, and that's your user, your user stories and all that stuff. But if they're a fact-based person, if it's a CFO, 90% of CFOs I've ever met do not care about the story. They will say, what is the point and how do you get to it? And so they just want literally facts and figures. This cost this, this cost this, this is our option, this is our opportunity here. This is and this is our solution for it. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense with finance. They might just be a little bit more. they want the information. They don't need a full story to demonstrate what you're trying to do. And then there comes a time whenever you're presenting to executives that you might get pushback. Because I feel like, especially in the world of IT, it's a lot of technology, a lot of topics that are not easily understandable. So how do you navigate when you do get pushback from executives?
Largely the pushback I tend to get is around what is the cost and what is the value? How did you get to the number of the value? You have to be able to really tell them, no, working with this leadership team, we established these are our baselines, these are our assumptions, these are what we are expecting the outcome to be. And that will cost this much money to get there. Mm-hmm. But if you're not prepared to really dig into those assumptions, it is a very challenging thing, because in a lot of cases, you're always asking for like a very significant sum of money to start with over a longer term return, right? Usually we book things on 3-year returns, maybe 5-year returns, depending on the business you're in. And if you're asking someone, can I spend $10 million today and we'll save $40 million over 3 years,
yeah.
I mean, the ROI numbers look great, but you're still asking to write a very large check at the very beginning there.
Yes. And that's a big investment for something that, the return on investment is not right away. It's over 3 years. And so definitely can be difficult to try to motivate executives to feel comfortable spending that amount of money when they could potentially put it into something else that they feel.
What do I, if I spend this $10 million today, or I spend it on salespeople, does adding bodies solve the problem in a cheaper way than adding technology? Mm-hmm. Right. And that's constantly why you have to really understand what your assumptions are. And you can even play out well, yes, we could add bodies, but there comes an inflection point on the graph where adding bodies really just causes more problems than it solves, whereas technology will allow the bodies we have to scale greater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like that kind of falls into that, the idea that people that don't work with technology might not understand the like impact that it can actually have on a business. And so it is your job as IT to be able to translate that to those executives. Um, so kind of switching gears a little bit, and talking about credibility with senior leadership. I think that's something that really helps you whenever you're making presentations, because you're already going in there with, you know, that credibility, and you can kind of lends itself to you being able to make a solid business case.
Yep.
So do you kind of have any tips about earning and maintaining credibility with either
Absolutely.
executives or even leadership?
The first is start small. Start with like good assumptions, right? And make sure that you have the people that you're working with you when you're going to the executive team. They don't have to be there physically, but in spirit. Like make sure that that everyone sees that they were involved in this process completely. Don't overestimate, right? It's so much better to say, hey, we're going to spend $1 million to save $1.5 million than to say we're going to spend $1 million to save 10. Because if you say we're going to save $1.5 million and you come in at $1.6 million, you're a hero. You saved more than you said you would. Say you're going to save 10 and you come in at $1.6 million, you're terrible at your job.
Yeah.
And then the secondary thing is like always make sure when you do your retrospective and you do your reflective on it and you report it out honestly. Hey, we said we were going to save this. We were being very conservative on the numbers. We actually ended up saving this, and here's why. Mm-hmm. And okay, or we ended up saving only this, and here's why. But be honest and make sure that they understand that your goal is truth in this. It's truth and transparency. It's not because that's what gains you credibility. Hey, I accept that we missed the mark completely. We failed on this, but we learned a lot. Here's what we learned. Here's how we're going to apply this going forward.
Yeah. I think that kind of holds true in a lot of places in both management and just kind of being an individual contributor too, is being honest and open and truthful about everything definitely helps lend credibility, so that, you know, you're honest when things go wrong, but you're also honest when things go right. And so they feel like they can trust you a little bit more.
And empirical data is the key when you're dealing with executives. You can't say, I feel like we did good. No, here's how we did good. Here's how we did bad.
Yeah. So for some projects that are maybe a bit more on the technical side, maybe it's, you know, refreshes, or maybe it's, I'm very much not technical. So there's a lot of projects that I probably would not understand. How do you navigate? Is there anything you say aside from trying to prove the business value, to try to communicate?
There are some things, by the way, that have zero business ROI. There's nothing, but you have to do them. They're required. Like your ERP platform is SAP. Let's just say SAP end of life's their platform regularly. You must do upgrades. There's no choice about it. The actual business value is zero, right? There's no real value to do that, other than you need to stay on a current version, you need to stay supported, and there's a big change always associated with that. Those are things. It's just critical that's how you put it out. Hey, this generates no value for us, but it's more of a cost avoidance by being on a version of software that is supported and validated and all of that. If there's a problem, we have a path. So it's not a straight up cost savings. It's more of just a cost of doing business, and we have to do this. And that they really kind of resonate with. We always want to be able to have some way to reach out to get support in the event of a problem. Yeah. It's like insurance on your car. You don't want to have it, but man, that one time you need it, you really need it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think that plays into another question I had about risky situations. So when it comes to cybersecurity, technical debt, things that you have to maintain, otherwise something bad will happen. how do you communicate those risks without causing too much fear or losing momentum or losing your audience?
So those are what we like to call keep the lights on, KTLO. That's just the work that you have to do to keep the lights going in an organization. Thankfully, all executives understand that there's a level of work that needs to happen, right? You need HR. HR, another group that is just a cost center. They don't create money, they don't create value, they are a cost center. Accounting, oddly enough, also just a cost center, because they don't make money, right? Sales makes money.
Yep.
Engineering makes the product, they make money. Everybody else is a cost center largely in most organizations.
Yeah.
So that's like the things. They understand that there is a dollar value to running the business, and what your job as an IT leader is to say, okay, yes, there's a cost. We're going to do our best to minimize the amount that doesn't generate value and maximize what does generate value, because that's where our big thing is. But we always have this base cost, no matter what we do, even if we just spend our time working on just keeping the lights on in this organization. It's going to have to happen no matter what. So.
Yeah. How would you deal with an executive that might not necessarily understand the cost of maybe a cyber incident or something like that?
Sure. With that one, it's actually, there's so much research and so many reports from the sort of organizations that they do listen to and pay attention to, the Gartners and the Forresters and and Forbes and whatnot, that always have this, hey, the average cost of a cybersecurity incident in the United States is between $5 and $24 million. That's a number that anybody can understand, and it's a big headline with lots of citations. But it's really worth understanding, why don't they feel like this is a thing? Is it because they've never had a cyber incident before, and so it's the cognitive disconnect of it, or is it that they've always been shielded from that side of business operations? Like, they are just in the planning and more strategic side of the business. They don't really understand the operational side of it. And either one of those, it's just a matter of like understanding that and helping them to understand why this other piece does exist. Oh, you've never had a cyber incident before? That's amazing. Kudos to every one of your cyber teams in history, because that's awesome. But it does happen, and it happens very regularly, and it's very, very public when it happens. And we don't want to deal with that kind of publicity. So we need to invest to make it not happen. So they don't understand the operations. Then it's okay. Let's talk through how business operations are in an organization like this and why we need to invest in these places.
Yeah.
I've never had a problem with that. I love what Nate said in the chat here. You're so right. Sometimes business value is measured in what doesn't happen. And that's entirely of what keeping the lights on and the run and maintain side of things is about. It's just what is not happening.
Yeah. What if it's something that is not as clear cut? It's a little bit more nebulous. It's not a cyber attack. It's, we have some servers that are slow and some servers that we probably need to upgrade. Something like that, where it's like, well, how do I measure that kind of business impact?
That's actually, so like the servers being slow, for an example, is actually also a very measurable, very easy. It takes this much time to do this task on these devices. If we upgrade, we save that much time. That much time, when translated across 400 developers, is a very measurable number. And then, but that simply becomes the value proposition. There is where does that thing, if it's something like that, that's harder, or it honestly gets a lot easier when you start doing things around projects. You say, okay, we want to build a project with engineering, with sales, to increase increase sales's call rate, or to increase engineering's build speed. So then you lay out all the facts and figures, and that just becomes more of a capital outlay in terms of servers or new storage or whatever is the problem, wherever the bottleneck is. But then you're going with your business partner, engineering or sales or whomever, to say, look, this is a problem. We have quantified it. Now we want to solve it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the big takeaways that I'm getting from this is quantifying those results, like quantifying the before and then after in the retro, and making sure that every outcome is not, we just want this to run faster. It's this upgrade will translate to this value. So I think that's definitely really good to know. And then I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit into the actual communication side itself. So whenever you are in a meeting with executives or other senior leadership, or, anyone like that, how did you grow as a communicator, and were there any resources that maybe helped you grow as well?
The biggest thing that was the biggest challenge I had was really just working on my presentation style. How do you sit in front of a group of powerful people who their time is very, very valuable? And when you're, a lower level manager or even a director, it's that you're spending thousands of dollars every minute just having these people in a meeting with you.
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to tone down the ums and the ahs that we all do when we're talking. And you notice it when you talk to your friends or something. If you start listening, you're like, oh yeah, we too listen to yourself. Oh, we totally do that. I took a class at one point called Presentations with Power, and it was the most humbling thing in my entire life, because what they did was they recorded us.
Yep.
And we had to watch ourselves giving a presentation. It was excruciating. Yep. I actually still have the mini DVD that they recorded every time I was up there on, and they gave it to me at the end of the thing.
Oh my gosh.
It was awful.
Yeah.
It was so bad. But what it did was it really helped me see how I am seen by other people, because you don't notice it, right? You don't notice it from yourself, where, oh yeah, no, I'm just talking. It's conversational. But when you're doing a presentation, time is money.
Yeah.
Do not put unnecessary filler.
Yeah.
You want 3 or 4 slides on a PowerPoint, maximum of 3 bullets on each one, and do not read your slide. Talk to the data, talk to what's up there. Don't read it out loud. Everybody's literate. They can all read it themselves. So, but the biggest thing was honestly just getting used to standing in front of these people, saying, you know what? Yes, their time is very valuable, but what I'm asking for also has a very significant value to this business.
Yeah, that definitely plays into some of the other topics that we've talked about before, specifically imposter syndrome, where a lot of people in IT, especially IT leadership, they feel like they just stumbled into it and they don't know how they got there, and they don't feel equipped. And so suddenly they feel like what they have to say isn't impactful or important, but it is. Yes. And so I think it's a great reminder that as IT leaders, what you guys have to say is important.
Yes, we are. To your earlier point, most executives don't know and don't want to know the ins and outs of IT. Sure. That's not where their value is. That's why I'm here as the director. My job is to understand what we're doing in IT, understand how it's impacting all of the areas of the business, not just how does it impact, IT, or how does it impact, I need to understand how what they're doing in sales operations impacts how we're doing in our financial and all of our financial systems, and how we are working with the compliance departments on upcoming compliance frameworks that we want to do, because ultimately we know more about everything that's going on than any other department does.
Yeah, y'all have a lot of insider knowledge with so many different stakeholders, because you have to, technology touches every single part of the business.
Exactly. So it's very, the senior leadership looks to us to understand more so even than what is IT doing. It's like, what is IT seeing that they can't see because our CRO is just looking straight down at his sales organization because that's where his focus needs to be. Mm-hmm. Our CTO is looking straight down at his engineering department because that's where he's got to be focused. And we see the breadth. So they're looking for us to be like, by the way, you're working on this and they're working on that. And these two things will not work together ever. Mm-hmm. So we all need to come together and talk about that. Or you're working on this and they're working on this. And this has a real natural synergy to this third group that doesn't even know it's happening. Yeah. Ultimately, we end up being a very large bridge across all departments, all divisions, and helping them understand what other people are doing. And that is another one of those things that brings us credibility because we can bring to the executive leadership team, by the way, here are these two things that have made a third, and this third thing is very valuable, and it didn't cost us anything but time, but bringing people together and helping them out. So there's a lot about really understanding that when you're looking across the organization as an IT leader, you're seeing things from a perspective that no one else in the organization has. Mm-hmm. And that is incredibly powerful, and that is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that Nate kind of summed it up really well. He said, if we don't believe what we do is valuable, why would stakeholders believe it? Which
exactly
is
it.
Very, very valid. So, I also had a question about maybe communication habits or routines. So aside from when you first got started and you took some courses or had somebody record you speaking, which I've had to edit so many clips of myself talking that I
yeah, it is humbling. If any of you on the call haven't done it, just set up your own webcam, turn on Microsoft Streams recording or any of the other screen recording things, QuickTime if you're on an Apple, whatever, and just give yourself a 5-minute presentation that you were planning to give someone else, and then watch it back. Mm-hmm. You will be humbled, I promise.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any other kind of habits or tips that you might give someone that's looking to kind of improve that day to day?
The people you're talking to are very, very bright. They're just not bright in the same places that you are, right? Don't talk down to people, but also don't expect them to know all of the latest jargon, right? That's not their bailiwick. That's not their wheelhouse. Just let them speak to them but they are all humans and they are all adults, and we don't have to understand the nuances of everybody's world in order to communicate effectively. Trying to talk down to executives rarely ends well. Dilbert is funny, but Dilbert is only funny because it's a comic strip and that's not real life. On top of that, it's just make sure that you're keeping people updated, right? The executives will not read every status update that you send on a project. They will not read most of the status updates that you send on a project. However, when you hit major milestones, make sure they're CC'd. Maybe even have milestone review meetings. It can be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Hey, we're 50% of the way through and we're already hitting some of these goals we thought were going to take us the whole way. Or we're behind on this and these are the things we're going to do to make up the ground. Mm-hmm. But make sure you keep them involved and engaged, because otherwise they're going to forget that you're even doing this project and why they agreed to do it and fund it in the first place. And if they're not remembering that, when you come at the end, they're going to be like, wait, why did we do this? What were we trying to solve here? And that just makes the next project harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Something that I wanted to mention too, are a couple of things that I linked in chat. It's kind of for the audience, but we have a new course in the lab where it's all about building your communication skills. We worked with Meetup, who does leadership training and soft skills training, to kind of talk a little bit about communication skills and help you learn from kind of experts in that field. So it's pulled from them as well as other sources. And then we also have a session that is going to be opened up on, I believe it's June 26th.
26th, yes. I wanted to go to it, but unfortunately I'm unavailable that day.
Oh, Bummer. But well, hopefully we have some folks here that might be interested in joining for that. But basically, it's going to be a small group session, 15 to 20 people working with a leadership coach from at Meetup, talking about public speaking, which I think is a really good, a really good opportunity. And then Nate asked, it looks like you're typing a response, but
I am. I was just about to say it also. We, Nate, to your question about what we use for running IT, we use all NinjaOne. We use the whole kit and caboodle. We don't use, and we currently use, while our MDM was still under development, we were using Microsoft Intune, but we are actively in the process of switching from Intune to Ninja MDM as our primary MDM tool. But that we use only Ninja tools internally.
I think that's amazing. I mean, I might be a little bit biased given that I work for Ninja, but I mean, I think a lot of companies don't really,
they don't eat their own dog food nearly as much. And I'll point out when I started, right? I started 3.5 years ago, and I was employee 324, and that's when I made the push, and I said all of our internal tooling is going to be using our own product, and if we have a problem with it or there's a limitation, we go over to the product team and we file bugs and we get things fixed, and we get features installed and changed and added and fixed. And since then, we have grown from 300 endpoints to well over 2,500 in our internal group, with well over 1,500 employees that we only use Ninja tools to manage.
Yeah, it's really, really cool seeing the scalability too. And I think that's something that I really like whenever I talk about my job, is that like if my friends or whatever ask about my job, I love talking about how the whole product team uses, like they were Ninja customers basically. And, I think it's really cool to have people that actually use the product. And then he asked about strategy planning and creating roadmaps.
Yeah, I use Jira and Asana mostly, and PowerPoint and Excel. Tragically, I spend entirely too much of my life in PowerPoint and Excel. But I mean, you use. Sadly, they are still the best tools for a lot of things. But Asana is really good in terms of project management, and its integrations are pretty awesome. So I've got a lot of automations that work with that and work through into Jira as well.
Oh, cool. So they work together. That's great. I mean, I feel like I should be sponsored by Asana with as much as I use Asana for everything. I think that if I was joking with my team yesterday that if Asana went down, I would probably just shut my laptop.
That unfortunately is a problem when you use SaaS platforms pretty exclusively, is when they have a failure, it is a massive failure.
It sucks though, because well, if you use multiple platforms and then now all of your information's all over the place and you can't keep track of things. So of course you want to use one platform for it, but then it has to be SaaS, and if it goes down,
Yep.
But yeah, big Asana fan for sure. All right. I think those are all the questions that I have, but did you have any kind of last minute things that you wanted to share that maybe I didn't cover, or tips?
Honestly, the biggest thing is know your audience. If your executives are very much strategy driven people, like they want more pie in the sky. I mean, all executives are strategy driven, but they want more like idea focusing. Tone your presentation that way. If they are more fact driven, they're more CROs, they're CFOs, that sort of thing, give them just data. That's all they want to see is data. They want it fast and they want it clear. That's all. In a mixed crowd, a little bit harder. Give them pretty pictures on the PowerPoint, but give them the Excel file on the back end also. Take advantage, by the way, if you're not using some of these, like Copilot or whatnot, any of these private tools that you can ask for clarity or for help, rewriting something. They're very good at making suggestions for toning towards a specific audience. But again, remember, if you're using the public ones, anything you load in there is available to anybody else in the world, and they can use it for whatever. They can ask questions that will uncover your data. So make sure you use the private enterprise ones.
Oh man, that's a very good point, and something I don't really think of very often. Don't worry, I haven't done anything. Don't.
I'm going to say that's why we have an AI policy that you can't use those things.
yeah. Don't worry, I haven't shared anything. But yeah, that's very interesting. I've never thought about that, and a great call out. Well, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you jumping on again. It's always a pleasure to chat.
Always happy to be here.
Awesome. And then we have another stream coming up in 2 weeks where we'll be discussing AI in action. So like you said, AI, it, definitely has some risks, but there's also some really great opportunities to be able to use it. A lot of
upside on it, yes.
Yeah. So definitely about maintaining a balance. And this one specifically is going to be about actually being able to use AI in an actionable way rather than just as a buzzword that people like to throw around.
Yes. Poorly. They like to throw it around wrong because it's not AI.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like whenever the cloud became a thing.
Yeah, AI is the new cloud.
Yes, that's exactly what I think. It's another buzzword that people like to use and don't really understand what exactly it means. So, well, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. And thanks, Nate, for the questions. And everyone else who joined, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.